Good afternoon to all those who have joined us for this webinar. This webinar being organized on the occasion of Europe Day which is dedicated to digital cultural heritage. The title of this webinar is based on the concept that our cultural heritage is more than the memory of our past. It is indeed the key to our future. Today, two of the European Union's two smallest countries, two Mediterranean islands, Malta and Cyprus, have joined together to present this webinar dedicated to the developments, the challenges, and the opportunities being faced by digital cultural heritage. With our speakers, we'll be discussing policy, but we'll also be discussing case studies related to digital cultural heritage acquisition, interpretation, and new technologies in communicating all this new data which we are collecting to the public. This seminar comes at a very particular time, at a time when many museums and cultural heritage sites are closed to the public because of the current pandemic. So it's very interesting to understand what we can do with digital technology to be able to reach out to the public and in a way still keep our doors open. First of all, I would like to welcome all our distinguished speakers and guests to this seminar. We're very honored to have a very representative board and a number of speakers who will be addressing the seminar. And I would like to immediately give you a quick run through of how this webinar is going to be split. We have a number of speakers from the European Commission, from COST, from the ministries in Malta and in Cyprus, also from the EEC, European Commission representation in Cyprus. We have an MEP from Malta, and they will all be speaking about policy, about digital cultural heritage, and the direction that the EU is giving in this sector. And then the rest of the webinar will all be dedicated to discussing case studies from Malta, Cyprus, and Germany. Some very interesting case studies, which will give you an idea of the direction where digital cultural heritage is going, and also what we've managed to achieve with the latest technologies available. I would like to thank, especially for this webinar, Dr. Marinos Ioannidis from Cyprus, who is the co-host for this seminar. Our collaboration, our networking started because of a new project, a new action, cost action. We got to know each other 4 years ago. And since then, our networking has kept on growing, and we've collaborated on a number of projects. And this webinar is one of them. And we hope to have even more closer collaboration together. And obviously, thank you for COST for making this networking possible. I would like to introduce our first speaker, who is Ms. 𝐸 𝐾𝐿, Director of the DG Connect from the European Commission. This department is responsible to develop a digital single market to generate smart, sustainable, and inclusive growth in Europe. Ms. 𝐸 𝐾𝐿, go ahead. You can start your intervention.
Okay, so Tony, thank you very much. Good afternoon, everybody. As you said, my name is 𝐸 𝐾𝐿. I'm British and Luxembourgish, and I'm Director in charge of the Data Directorate at the European Commission. So I am speaking to you today from Luxembourg. It's a great pleasure to be here and to share this platform with important personalities from Malta, Cyprus, and of course our colleagues and representatives in the European Parliament. Today marks the 70th anniversary of the Schuman Declaration, when the French Foreign Minister, Robert Schuman, proposed the creation of the European Coal and Steel Community. The institution was the first of a series of supranational European institutions that would ultimately become today's European Union. When you read again the Schuman Declaration, against the current context, some sentences of the speech are quite striking. The speech starts with, world peace cannot be safeguarded without the making of creative efforts proportionate to the dangers which threaten it. If we replace peace by safety or recovery, that sentence applies equally to the current crisis. I'm very lucky to be working for the Directorate General, whose task is to create a digital union contributing to a smart, sustainable, inclusive growth in Europe. We cannot travel yet, sadly, and enjoy our wonderful culture, but thanks to digital technologies and tools, we can interact, we can learn, we can work, we can enjoy, and we can build the recovery. I have to say, I have been very impressed with the extent to which the activity has continued or even intensified in many areas. Without digital technologies and tools, it would most likely have been impossible to do that, and the impact of the crisis would have been even greater. The cultural heritage sector was among the first to feel the impact and to feel it harder. No tickets means no revenue for many museums and sites while they are closed, and this eventually resulted in staff layoffs. For Cyprus and Malta, this situation is even more serious, affecting many other sectors. Whilst cultural tourism accounts for 40% of all tourism in the EU, in these two countries, the figures can go up to 95% of all foreigners visiting sites and monuments. Many member states are taking special measures to support the affected sectors, and particularly cultural heritage. The Commission is listening to them and making substantial proposals for a common European response to support the European society and economy, both in fighting the health crisis, but also, of course, for the post-crisis recovery. Overall, Europe's collective response is well above 3 trillion euros, the most impressive response in the world. This includes the SURE instrument to mitigate unemployment risks, and as President von der Leyen put it, the European budget should be the mothership of Europe's recovery. In the area of digital in particular, the digital strategy adopted on 19th of February, before we really knew that a crisis was coming, has gained new importance. In addition to using data, supercomputers and artificial intelligence to fight the virus, digital technologies are central to the efforts to keep us learning, socializing, working, and even exercising. At the same time, we are also seeing many cultural heritage institutions acting very effectively in taking advantage of the options offered by digital technologies during the crisis. Some of them were already doing that before, but there is a significant increase in the availability and the use of virtual visits in various innovative formats, such as 3D models, 360-degree videos, or VR experiences, and live and interactive online events and activities. I enjoy a lot going through the Cultural Heritage at Home webpage to explore some of the spectacular experiences available, like the 3D models of the church Virgin for Viotissa and the Paphos Castle in Cyprus, or the virtual visits of Fort Sant'Angelo and the National Museum of Archaeology in Malta. Europeana, our website, a platform, also has an entire collection of 3D models of cultural heritage objects. However, and since the confinement, the focus of Europeana is to support the heritage professionals and to cope so that it can cope with the challenges brought about by the crisis while continuing to bring European culture online to citizens. Cultural heritage institutions engaged with digital technologies are able to maintain contact with their audiences, and even more notably, to connect with new audiences that are discovering them only now by digital means in the context of the current crisis and the stay-at-home limitations. I saw today in the British papers that they were talking about opportunities exactly of this type for the whole cultural heritage sector that they hope can be built on to grow the economy in the future. I believe this will be very important for the recovery in Europe. The new audiences reached by digital means are likely to show a stronger interest to visit the museums and sites they are now discovering. Similarly, existing audiences are likely to emerge from the crisis keen on revisiting museums or historical sites that are becoming closer to them virtually during this period. We hope that this will also have beneficial effects for other sectors that rely heavily on cultural heritage assets, in particular tourism, particularly in those countries dependent on them, like Malta and Cyprus. Digitized cultural heritage can contribute significantly to that attraction, giving us a taste of the experience from afar. As you said, Tony, Cyprus and Malta are islands, but thanks to digital, that does not mean isolated anymore. We are working towards a speedy and solid post-crisis recovery plan at various levels. Next week, the European Commission will present actions to support tourism, which will be important for countries such as Malta and Cyprus. So with this, I wish you a very fruitful webinar. It is my promise that when we will not be confined anymore, I will visit, I'm starting to cry, I will visit your two beautiful countries. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. You'll be very welcome to come to Malta, and I'm sure to Cyprus as well. It's very encouraging to see that the European Commission, the European Union, is working hard to help countries like Malta and Cyprus in this difficult time when tourism is so adversely affected, and it's going to take some time to recover, but we need to be prepared. So the minute travel can open back up, we'll be ready. And I think that digital has also opened up many opportunities which need to be kept up even once we go to this new normality and we're back up for business. Thank you very much for your intervention. Thank you. So the next speaker is Mr. Papadopoulos, who is the head of representation for the Commission, European Commission in Cyprus. Welcome, Mr. Papadopoulos. Good afternoon.
Hello, Tony. Good afternoon. Excellencies, dear colleagues, dear friends, thanks very much for this invitation, and I congratulate the organizers for this webinar. We have quite special times, and today's a special day as we have Europe Day, the Schuman Declaration, 70 years of the Schuman Declaration, 75 also years of the end of the World War II. It's the first time we celebrate this way. Until now, of course, in the representations, we used to have very active physical events with a lot of people participating. It's the first time that we have, of course, we are obliged to do that differently. It is also a very special time for all Europeans. Most Europeans were locked in their homes, and this is true also for more than 4 billion, 4.5 billion of citizens of this planet. This is quite unique. We have never seen that for decades, and I hope we will not see that again. We had this experience, but I think we learned a lot. This is also this was also an opportunity to see what EU stands for. You remember that in the beginning of the crisis, where nobody was expecting this crisis, even 3 months ago, there was no real solidarity shown from member states. So again, when there is a problem, we always show towards Brussels. EU is to blame, why there is no solidarity, why EU doesn't do anything. But this showed us also what EU stands for, which means that only when we are united, we are stronger. Only when we act as one, we can achieve something, especially in this world. I think over the last weeks, people have understood that EU has the power to help member states, to help the citizens. We have done things in a record time to allow member states to take all the necessary means in order to support the economies, to support the citizens, to protect jobs. And we have done so with more than 200 decisions and acts of the European Commission. But at the same time, people showed us where we should, let's say, go together in the future, which means health, for example. Health is not it's not the first competence of the EU. It's the first competencies lies within the member states. But people expect from EU, and maybe is something that a lot of people do not know, we can remind that Robert Schuman, after the declaration in 1950, 2 years later, he organized a meeting for health in order to have a Europe of health, which did not succeed as a project. But after this crisis, I think we can move towards a second step. This crisis meant also that millions of people being at home discovered the value of both culture and technology, because I don't think that people can imagine that all these days, how we could have passed all these days without films, without music, without books, without internet. And we also discovered that this internet is not only about Netflix. Internet is also about using the means in order to visit a museum, in order to visit a piece of art. And this is why the digital cultural heritage is so important. And we do provide all the necessary means. My colleague 𝐦𝐿 explained what we are doing in this. And only a few days ago, we launched a platform, Creatives Unite, where artists, where creators can use it in order to express themselves, in order to share information, in order to use it as a free means of platform. I think after this crisis, we'll be a bit wiser on what our values are, the most important values of the EU are, and that united we are stronger. And I'm pretty sure that after this crisis, because every time there is a crisis, a lot of people foresee that this is the end of the Union. We have seen that over many crises in the past years. But every time after a crisis, the Union comes stronger from this crisis. I very much hope that after this crisis, we will be stronger and we will be united in order to address the challenges of tomorrow. Thanks very much, and all the best for this webinar. And congratulations again. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Papadopoulos. As you said, two of the tag words which we use for this seminar, for this webinar, were stronger together and united in diversity. And we really strongly believe that together, when we work together, we can be stronger, and our diversity can even unite us. It is very encouraging to see two countries, two island nations like Malta and Cyprus working together to come up with innovative projects and innovative actions in the areas of digital cultural heritage. Thank you for joining us. The next speaker is Mr. Ronald De Bruyn from 𝐶OST. 𝐶OST is the European Cooperation in Science and Technology Program. And there have been over the years a number of 𝐶OST actions dedicated to cultural heritage. And with time, the digital element of all these 𝐶OST actions has always been increasing in importance. And we hope to see whole 𝐶OST actions dedicated for cultural digital innovation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tony, for introducing me, and it's a pleasure for me to be in this webinar. All the more because, of course, this webinar takes place in the context of the COVID pandemic. There would have been no webinar without this pandemic at the same time. For the cultural heritage, this pandemic can either be seen as a blessing or a curse. It depends on how you look at it. There's, of course, an increase in awareness that the heritage sites are less crowded and therefore less also polluted, more protected. But without the tourism coming in, there is no, let's say, sustainability in preserving these sites long term. So, of course, it is always a matter of striking the balance. And I hope that indeed we will come out stronger this crisis with an even more balanced approach that will reinforce the sustainability in protecting our heritage. Today we are talking about digital cultural heritage. And yeah, the digital technology allowed the organizers of this high-level webinar to break a speed record. I was told that in roughly a week time, this webinar was organized, and we have such a distinct, let's say, and distinguished, let's say, list of contributors. I listened quite attentively to Mrs. Kent also, and also our EU representative in Cyprus. And I think that underpins that this is high on the agenda. But when talking about, let's say, heritage, and before going into that, of course, I should not forget to make a huge compliment to the organizers. I think that when we see, and I can see, of course, the number of participants online, I'm seeing there a number 489 participants. Now, this is also quite telling. So I just wanted to highlight that before continuing with my introduction. So indeed, it is about heritage. Heritage comes also within heritage. And in heritage comes with responsibility. So altogether, we are responsible not only to look, of course, at preserving this and being able to look into the rearview mirror to past, but quite appropriately so, it is very clear that the protection of our digital heritage and our cultural heritage, of course, is the key to our future. And also here, digital technologies are key in enabling that. But what are we talking about when we talk about cultural heritage? When we talk about Europe, because we are organizing this webinar all together on Europe Day. And this is, in my view, but it's a bit of a personal take, the most often misunderstood concept of Europe, because we are Europe. You are Europe. And over time, we have, of course, tried all together to also create a bit of symbolism in this. And although these symbols were never enshrined, let's say, in a legal act, nevertheless, they are strongly, let's say, present in our awareness. And these symbols are in particular the four symbols: the flag of Europe. Of course, we know this blue flag with the 12 stars. We know the anthem of Europe, the Ode to Joy of Beethoven. That's also something that accompanies, let's say, our national, let's say, identity. It accompanies the national flags, as we have the same, of course, with the flags of Europe standing next to the national flags. We have the anthem to complement the national anthems. It's not a replacement. We, of course, also have the motto of the EU, United in Diversity, which, just like the flag of Europe, resulted from a contest, a public contest. And I should also, of course, mention Europe Day itself, Schuman, the Schuman Declaration in 1950. And in the end, Europe Day is therefore also called Schuman Day. Now, coming a little bit to the contribution of cost in protecting our cultural heritage. As mentioned, cost is an active contributor. In our very core, we provide researchers and innovators opportunities to create networks and together tackle all different kinds of societal, technological, economical questions which are demanding a very interdisciplinary, let's say, look at finding solutions. We have a community of roughly 45,000 participants active in all different kinds of network that are established bottom up. And of course, we very much appreciate that there is a good critical mass of cost actions that are active in the field of protecting our cultural heritage. I have been witness myself in 2018 when there was a wonderful conference organized in Cyprus. I recall very much the efforts of the entire team. And if I may drop one name here, Professor Ioannidis is a real motivator in this community. But for example, and I don't want to exclude anyone else, but for example, also we have a very active action chair, Mr. João Martins from Portugal, for example, who are really making contributions as many others do. So cost is in for a long-term partnership. We have also organized dedicated stakeholder meetings where we brought together not only the cost actions, but also the players in other European initiatives, including even representatives from European Commission, executive agencies, to see what we can do and move forward here. So in that sense, I just want to, let's say, reconfirm that cultural heritage is on the agenda, is high on the agenda of cost, and we are here for the long term. Now, on a personal note, Cyprus, beautiful island. I visited Cyprus several times, enjoyed many beautiful sites like the 𝐵. Malta, very close to my heart. St. John's Co Cathedral is the most impressive cathedral I have ever seen, and there are many more sites, of course. But I should also mention that I spent 5 years of my life on the beautiful island of Crete. So also to the people from Greece who connected, and I saw many people connecting from Greece, I think I have some Mediterranean, let's say, inclination in my contribution here. So thank you so much for allowing us to contribute, and I really wish everyone to enjoy this webinar in the best possible way. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Dr. De Bruyn. A big thank you goes out to COST for supporting this webinar. Since you mentioned Chair João Martins, I would like to send him a big hello because he was the one who introduced me to COST. It was a fantastic cost action. Eventually, I joined other cost actions, and I think it's a wonderful experience for many professionals, both from academia and from industry, to collaborate together, get to know each other on a European level. And I would strongly suggest for many people to look closer at what COST can offer for this kind of networking. Thank you very much. I would like to introduce the next speaker. We have two ministers now from Malta and from Cyprus and Malta, ministers from the Cultural Ministry. And the first speaker is Dr. 𝐦𝐨𝐫𝐞 from the Ministry of Education, Culture, Sport and Youth. Dr. 𝐦𝐨𝐫𝐞, can you hear us?
Yes, good afternoon from
Good afternoon.
Cyprus. Of course, I'm not the minister. I'm the head of European and International Affairs of the Ministry of Education, Culture, Sport and Youth. My minister, Minister Prodromos Prodromou, has asked me to convey his greetings and his apologies for not being able to be with you today at this moment. He has also instructed me to read his address, which is as follows. Distinguished panelists, distinguished members of the Cypriot and Maltese organizing and scientific committee of this webinar, dear participants, it's with great pleasure to welcome you to this special joint webinar on Digital Cultural Heritage 2020 to commemorate this year's Europe Day on the 9th of May and celebrate the 70th anniversary of the European Solidarity and Schuman Declaration. This unique pan-European event is co-organized by the Heritage Malta, the UNESCO and EU Digital College at the Cyprus University of Technology, with the full support of the European Commission and the EU COST European Cooperation in Science and Technology Program. Your presence here today underlines the importance of this event, which is also a great opportunity for European and international stakeholders to come together and share knowledge and expertise made in the European Union in the field of digital cultural heritage. We all know that the digitization of the past, of the human story, and in general of cultural heritage is not a simple task. It requires knowledge, outstanding expertise, effective and innovative research, collaboration, solidarity, and most importantly, key partnerships. Based on that, and under the motto #StrongerTogether or United in Diversity, and within the spirit of Europe for Culture and Unite for Heritage, two of the smallest island nations of the EU, Malta and Cyprus, have come together under the UNESCO motto Share Heritage and Preserve Heritage to illustrate their commitment to protect our common European past and demonstrate their latest achievements and innovative results, which are fully financed by the European Union. Cyprus and Malta, which are the only EU members in the Mediterranean Sea, physically cut off from the main continent, with thousands of years of rich history and unique UNESCO-listed World Heritage sites, are both committed to preserve and valorize their cultural heritage. Therefore, both our countries signed in Brussels in April last year the EU Digital Day 2019 Declaration on Advancing Digitization of Cultural Heritage. The establishment of the third UNESCO chair in Cyprus in the field of digital cultural heritage and the newly established National Committee on Digitization of Cyprus Cultural Heritage are also here to reinforce our joint efforts, not only to build bridges from the past to the future, but also among our nations. Europe's rich cultural heritage and its dynamic creative sectors strengthen the European identity and create a sense of belonging, such as this event clearly demonstrates. Increasing threats to cultural heritage due to natural disasters, pollution, mass tourism, deterioration over time, terrorism, pandemics like the COVID-19, and vandalism create an urgent need to make the most of digital technologies to record, document, preserve and protect Europe's cultural heritage and foster under Europeana their accessibility to European citizens and the world. At the same time, high quality, interoperable and open access to digital cultural heritage assets are essential to create higher digital engagement for audiences and foster spillovers in various sectors such as tourism, education and creative industries, as we experienced it in the last couple of months. Emerging technologies such as big data and extended reality offer multiple possibilities to further process, to use and reuse digitally our past. 3D technologies are especially promising, providing new ways of advancing scientific understanding, handling and restoring damaged or fragile heritage, and ensuring digital preservation that reflects the uniqueness of our heritage. 3D is also one of the foundations for interactive technologies such as virtual and augmented reality for cultural applications. Here is where our two countries will illustrate today their novel results and how we contribute to our common efforts of digitization in Europe. I'm convinced that this is a milestone event on the never-ending journey of discovery and innovation in the pursuit of knowledge and developments of our common history and its preservation for the generations to come. I'm also confident that this particular event will enhance and strengthen international and regional cooperation and promote awareness and tools for future innovative research and development to protect and document the European cultural heritage. With this in mind, the Cyprus government welcomes every effort towards the preservation of cultural heritage, as we strongly believe that is of great value and perhaps the most significant ingredient for the emergence of a common cultural heritage. Finally, I would like to thank the European Commission and its representation in Cyprus, as well as the COST program and my colleague, the Maltese Minister of Culture, for their continued support and guidance to turn this event into a success. I would also like to congratulate Heritage Malta and the Cyprus University of Technology, whose expertise will contribute to a fruitful and effective cooperation between the two countries and beyond. Their valuable efforts have contributed to the organization of another remarkable joint event. I would also express, would like to also to express my appreciation to all participants and experts from the entire world who took the time and effort to join us at this unique day of Europe, and I'm sure that everyone will greatly benefit from this event. Prodromos Prodromou, Minister of Education, Culture, Sport and Youth, Cyprus. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Stavridis, for sharing with us the Minister's views and observations. It's been, although we both countries are passing through a very difficult time at the moment with the pandemic and problems with tourism, it's very comforting to know that both countries can work together, as is being experienced through this webinar, and we look forward to extend this collaboration much more now that we've set the first step in this collaboration. Thank you very much. The Honourable Jose Herrera, Minister for Culture from Malta, I would like to invite you to share with us your views as the Minister. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Dear esteemed guests, first of all, good afternoon. As today Europe is commemorating and celebrating Europe Day, I would like to start my address by showing my sincere gratitude and appreciation to the work being carried out by all those involved in the creative and cultural sectors across Europe, especially during these very challenging times. Today we are celebrating Europe Day, 70 years of solidarity, which solidarity perhaps is needed most in this particular period. Our culture and heritage are essential elements which give us our own identities. The discussion we are having today on the digitization of cultural heritage comes at a time when technology has become more crucial in our everyday lives. Living in today's digital era, we've become more and more dependent on technology, and digital solutions have become an integral part of our lives. The reality we are living today will further push for more digitization and more effective use of technology. The theme of this webinar is "Our cultural heritage is more than the memory of our past. It is the key to our future." We can only achieve this by ensuring that our heritage is not lost through time. Digitization is one of the most important pillars we must actively invest in. Today, we are all living in an unprecedented reality whereby the dependence on technology is more evident. Digitization will enable the cultural heritage of a nation to be made available to others. The theme of this webinar, as stated, "Our cultural heritage is more than the memory of the past," is the key to our future. We can only achieve this by ensuring that our heritage is not lost through time. Digitization is one of the important pillars we must therefore actively invest in. How fast were we to react to the fact that our museums had to close down and there are no tourists visiting the country? I mean, Malta and Cyprus are both despondent a bit on the tourism market. We both sell our heritage and our patrimony to foreigners, and obviously our institutions of this kind are made sustainable by the income which we get from tourism sector. So this has created a bit of a problem for us. However, I must state and must reiterate that within a few days after our museums were closed, Heritage Malta, for those who don't know, is the central agency in Malta which looks after and preserves our more important historical sites. So Heritage Malta has issued a number of initiatives online to the general public, and the general public, when you're speaking about digital channels, means the whole world, basically. The digitization of our heritage will play a key role in making sure our cultural agency weather the storm today and even in the future. The uncertainty factor of new reality we will all live in after COVID-19 has to be addressed, and therefore all players or key players in this sector have to start studying and making the necessary arrangements and preparations to be able to exist in a post-COVID age. Digitization will play a crucial part in various aspects: conservation and preservation, research and innovation, valorization of cultural heritage, regeneration of the tourism industry, business development, and I would add something else also, which is the preservation of our collective memory. For me, the preservation of our collective memory is part of our patrimony. In fact, for the first time, the cultural ministry has become more inclusive and more holistic in Malta, and we even include such matters such as, for example, the National Archives, the libraries. Why? Because for us, preserving collective memory is just as important almost as preserving the material and physical artifacts. Our collective memory is a European one. We can boast as a country probably, and I know that even Cyprus can do this, but we can boast of one of the best archives, dating back to the medieval period and even through the period of the Knights, and one of the best and best kept. We have the church here, we have the Knights of St. John who ran this country as if it were their own country, and there's a wealth of archives which need to be preserved technologically. Malta understands the importance of digitization and will be working actively to start working on a national digitalization strategy for cultural heritage. We will be looking into having a holistic vision and strategy to specifically target heritage, archives, arts, even the creative arts, and libraries. Malta understands that although we are, together with Cyprus, perhaps the two smallest countries in Europe, and we also suffer from isolation because we are island states, we have a big role to play when it comes to heritage. In fact, we're not small in heritage. We have a heritage and a patrimony which goes back to millennia. For example, Malta boasts of some of the oldest Neolithic and pre-Neolithic temples in the world. We have temples which go back to 5,000, even 6,000 years, and they are in a very good state. Where Malta had invested, tapped into a lot of cohesion European funds and funds, and we have restored and preserved well our patrimony, and therefore, when it comes to heritage, even on a European and international level, Malta, though physically small, it is culturally very large. The National Digitization Strategy for Cultural Heritage shall ensure a future to our past and present. We want to relive today, tomorrow. Malta and Cyprus share various similarities, as I stated, and I reiterated, and we are both rich in cultural heritage. The COVID-19 pandemic has further highlighted the need for true European solidarity on all fronts. The initiative we are taking today is to ensure that we rethink our strategies today for our future. Support is crucial, especially for countries like Malta and Cyprus. Unless tailor-made funding and support structures are defined to our needs, that our big role we have in Europe's cultural heritage will be lost. Unless, therefore, we redefine the support structures, our huge role won't be felt enough, and we feel that it should be felt enough. It is not a Maltese patrimony, it is a European patrimony. We identify as part of the greater European picture. I want to stress that funds from the European Cooperation in Science and Technology, COST, fund should be utilized to adapt traditional revenue-generating activities in museums and heritage sites to the social context post-COVID-19. Malta is starting the process, giving more tangible priority to digitization. But in order to implement successfully, support is pivotal. I want to thank all the participants in today's webinar and really look forward to see tangible results in this field. Good evening and have a nice weekend, everybody.
Thank you very much, Honourable Minister. I would like to invite the Honourable Miriam Dalli, Maltese MEP, to address this webinar. Thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. And it's so amazing to see so many people coming together with around 490 participants. It's no joke, seeing people coming from all across the EU and also beyond. When I'm seeing messages coming in of people saying where they're joining from, it's so good to see so many people coming together, even if we are going through a pandemic with all its impacts and all its consequences. But it goes to show how digitalization is bringing us all together on very important topics. And when we speak of culture, as we are doing today, I honestly think of my nation's story, the way my ancestors survived through the years, and the way we are currently living at the moment. And today, particularly on 𝐻𝐻 Day, I cannot not share the fact that I, for one, feel that my culture is rooted in being part of a bigger European Union, where despite our differences, common ground is to be found for the benefit of millions of citizens. And solidarity is being mentioned a lot. Now is the time for solidarity. I believe that post-COVID-19, we really can't go to business as usual. We really can't go to how things were before. We need to go down the path of solidarity. Solidarity rooted when it comes to economic issues, when it comes to health issues, when it comes to environmental issues, when it comes to migration issues, but yes, also when it comes to tourism and culture. And culture is a very vast topic, as it is grounded in the very way we behave. But at this point in time, when we are facing stark, unprecedented realities due to the spread of COVID-19, we realize how culture, it is so important to bring us more closer together. Because of lockdown measures introduced across the EU to tackle the spread of the coronavirus, we have many cultural entities all around the world who have closed the doors without knowing when they would open again, cancelling performances and exhibitions, and also limiting space for artistic expression. However, if there is one thing I really realized from all of this, is how people are very quick to adapt. And we are all witnessing encouraging examples where alternative services were created around the world by means of digital tools. So if I had to mention some examples, for example, the BBC launched a virtual festival of the arts called Culture in Quarantine. The Sydney Biennale became the first international arts festival to go entirely digital, shortly followed by the National Arts Festival, the largest arts festival in Africa. And we need not look far. I'm sure that if you had to look at your own member state, at your own country, you will find a lot of similar examples. I come from Malta. We have seen online concerts in Malta, and allow me to further commend also Heritage Malta for its wise and timely reaction to COVID-19, starting also its plan for the digitization of Malta's heritage in collaboration with the Maltese government. And Malta has been at the forefront of sharing underwater, for example, cultural heritage through digital means, and including also the launch of the new Phoenician Shipwreck Project website. And I'm mentioning this particular example because a few years ago, I had brought a physical exhibition of this Phoenician Shipwreck Project in Brussels. And I know this was a massive springboard to take the project to the next level. And it was a project that attracted a lot of attention. It had also virtual reality in it. So it was a mix of actually having a physical exhibition, but also having digitization coming in together. But I know that taking these steps is not always easy within a context where you have many people in the sector that are losing their employment contracts, for example, or completely losing their employment, some temporary and some permanently. And although public demand for culture activities, I'm sure will return someday, we don't really know when this will happen and whether traditional experiences will go back to what we knew of before. However, thanks to digital technologies and the internet, citizens now have unprecedented opportunities to access cultural material, while cultural institutions are able to reach out to larger audiences, attract new users, and also produce creative and accessible content for both leisure and education. And now more than ever, the European Commission's role, I believe, is vital in leading policy debate and also bringing stakeholders together to improve the framework condition for digitization and also digital preservation. And funding instruments that are already being used on this are Horizon 2020 and the Connecting European Facility, but I believe that we can do so much more in this regard. As members of the EU Parliament, we have voiced our thoughts already with the President of the European Commission, asking for crucial steps to be taken. First, by establishing a European Cultural Support Fund aimed at independent artists and infrastructure, and especially those not relying on constant budget support. Secondly, by creating a framework for supporting cultural activities and traditions, binding member states to include cultural and creative sectors in their respective national support and recovery programs, and especially EU-supported programs. Thirdly, by enforcing existing legislation and new legislation, providing equal treatment to publicly support independent arts in the times of COVID-19 crisis and also thereafter. And finally, providing public support, including financial and technical assistance for online performances and activities. Now, I honestly believe that supporting the cultural sector in Malta, I believe in Cyprus as well, and in many Mediterranean countries is not an option. It is a necessity. And I'm sure you're all aware that in Malta, much like Cyprus, tourism is our key to annual GDP. What we perhaps don't realize enough is that culture is one of the strongest selling points of attraction in the eyes of holidaymakers and travelers, especially in a world where tourism has become more focused on authentic experiences, being immersed in local culture. I believe that cultural tourism is in fact a very important part of our economy. And this is one of the reasons why the Malta Ministry for the National Heritage, the Arts and Local Government and its Cypriot counterpart have my support in their bid to push for greater allocation of European Union funds towards the digitization of cultural heritage for small member states, which are heavily reliant on tourism. We need to ensure that no artist feels left out and that all artists are aware of what they need to do in order to be screened for eligibility for funding. Today's digital world makes it easier more than ever to convey the message that we need to make sure that we don't leave anyone behind and that we come together. And this is a strong message that I feel I need to convey, particularly today in Europe's Day, considering also the impact of COVID-19 on all our member states. I wish you all a very fruitful discussion. Thanks for this opportunity. And once again, it's so good to see so many people coming together.
Thank you very much, Honorable Dalle. As you said, we have more than 470 participants in the webinar itself, but also this webinar is being streamed live on Facebook, so there are even more people viewing the webinar, and we have had over 1,000 registrations to our mailing database to receive more news of and recordings of the webinar itself. Thank you very much for your intervention. The next speaker is Mr. Ħaġġjanis, who is the chair of the Cypriot Parliament Committee on Educational Affairs and Culture. Good afternoon, Mr. Ħaġġjanis.
Good afternoon from Famagusta in Cyprus. But I saw before the number of participants, almost to 500. Congratulations for this.
Thank
Your
you.
Excellency, Mr. Minister, of Culture of Malta, Mr. Herrera, dear colleague Miriam Dali, dear Ms. Ken, Director of DG Connect European Commission, dear Mr. Papadopoulos, Head of the Representation of the European Commission in Cyprus, dear Mr. Roland De Bruyn, Director of 𝐻𝐸 and European Cooperation in Science and Technology Program. Ladies and gentlemen, it is really my great pleasure to welcome you on behalf of the Parliament of Cyprus and its Committee on Education and Culture to this unique webinar organized among the Heritage Malta and UNESCO and ERA chairs on digital cultural heritage to celebrate the 70th anniversary of the Schuman Declaration and the Day of Europe. The event provides an important opportunity to discuss and define the part that digital technologies can play in preserving and restoring the growing number of endangered cultural heritage sites in Europe and its neighboring regions as a result of man-made and environmental threats. However, it is clear that during the current worldwide pandemic period, we faced that people isolated in their homes showed an increased interest in visit virtually archaeological sites and museum collections. This is very important. It is vital that we understand the ways in which technologies and standards should be deployed so that digitized heritage is preserved and accessible for the long term, and so that the full story behind heritage sites and artifacts is taught through access to complementary data and material, which illustrates their cultural, history significance, universal and outstanding values for all the interested audiences. Cyprus was one of the first EU countries to respond to the invitation of the European Commission to commit and sign the Digital Day 2019 Declaration on Advancing Digitization in Cultural Heritage in April last year. Today, two key institutions, the Heritage Malta and the Cyprus University of Technology, which are engaged with various local, regional, and European stakeholders, are going to demonstrate a part of their outstanding results following the commitment of our two small EU member states in the areas of digitization, preservation, protection, and promotion of our common pass-through Europeana. The speakers will discuss and illustrate why the Digital Day 2019 Declaration is so relevant and important during this difficult time period for our member states and for Europe in general, and why cooperation is essential across our continent when it comes to united in diversity and stronger together in Europe for culture. As a committee responsible for education and culture, I would like to assure you that we stay to your disposal anytime and welcome any further cooperation strengthening the digitization of cultural heritage. Thank you and hope good results in this webinar, and my wishes for peace in Europe. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hadjianis. Thank you. This concludes the first part of the webinar. For those who are asking on the chat about the link to the live Facebook streaming, you can find a link to the live Facebook stream through the Heritage Malta website. And I would also like to mention that we have the possibility for you to ask any questions about the second part of the webinar, the technical presentations we're just about to present. And in fact, I would like to thank once again all the speakers of the first part of the webinar for joining us this morning on this webinar. And I would like to now introduce Mr. Russell Muscat from Heritage Malta, Mr. Muscat is the digitization manager for Heritage Malta, and through his presentation, we're going to take a slightly different aspect, slightly different take to digitization, because many people sometimes think that digitization is all about scanning documents. Scanning is only part of it. Scanning is the acquisition part of digitization, but Heritage Malta has, over the last 2 months, leashed out a whole set of digital tools to reach out to visitors who would normally be able to visit the museums and sites managed by Heritage Malta, but because of social distancing, these sites now are closed for the public. Mr. Muscat will share some of these initiatives which were taken over the last 2 months, and also discuss about the future projects which are being held, which are being planned by Heritage Malta. Mr. Muscat, I would like to invite you to start your presentation.
Good afternoon. My name is Russell Muscat, and I'm the Heritage Manager for Heritage Malta. Start. The scope of this presentation is to give an overview of Heritage Malta and how Heritage Malta coped till the present moment in this pandemic, and the shift towards the digital. Just for you to know, because I'm seeing that there are a lot of people. I wanted to give you a little bit of information about Heritage Malta and the scope of Heritage Malta. Heritage Malta is the national agency for museums, conservation practice, and cultural heritage. And it was created in 2002, and it replaced the former museums department. The mission of Heritage Malta is to ensure that those elements of cultural heritage entrusted to it are protected to and made accessible to the general public. The agency also operates a conservation division for the training of conservators and conservation scientists. Heritage Malta now seeks to provide its various audiences with an enhanced experience during visits to the various sites and museums. And therefore, cultural heritage can act as a catalyst for Malta's tourism potential and consequently contribute significantly to the economy. The agency has a specific educational section with special education programs targeting children of different ages, groups as part of organized school visits. And these programs are based on local education curriculum and address specific areas of study and edutainment approach. Heritage Malta is also committed to bring culture closer to the people through facilitating interpretation. Over the past few years, Malta has taken action in the cultural heritage field. On the 13th April 2017, Malta ratified the Convention for the Safeguarding of the Intangible Cultural Heritage. Also, on the 9th of April, 27 European countries signed the Declaration of Cooperation on Advancing Digitization of Cultural Heritage. The declaration had 3 pillars of action: a pan-European initiative for 3D digitization of cultural heritage artifacts, the reuse of digital cultural resources, and the enhancing cross-sector and cross-border cooperation. Also, Heritage Malta is affiliated with a number of major institutions. So let me now shift a little bit to the tourism and education sector, because the tourism and education sector are 2 pillars which basically are very important to Heritage Malta. Cultural heritage acts as a catalyst for Malta's tourism potential and consequently contributes significantly to the economy. More and more people are seeking unique travel experiences that combine history, education, entertainment, and authenticity. However, these are not the only travelers who are interested in Malta's cultural heritage. Heritage Malta works also hand in hand with most of the major entities working in tourism industry. These include different players in the field, such as tour operators, travel agencies, destination management companies, and Malta Tourism Authority and the Ministry of Tourism. There are also close contacts with the industry representatives, and international clients ranging from service providers to direct calls from the end clients. The agency has a specific educational section with special educational programs targeting children of different age groups as part of organized school visits. These programs are based on the local educational curriculum and address specific areas of studies and an edutainment approach. The agency works also with most of the education institutions in the field. This includes local and international institutions working in the public and private areas. It collaborates with entities from all levels of education and collaborates extensively with institutions such as the University of Malta, MCAS, technical institutions, and other educational institutes in Malta. It also works extensively with the Ministry of Education, the Education Department, especially in the field of formal education. However, Heritage Malta is committed to provide educational resources beyond the formal curriculum. In this particular slide, I'm showing the Heritage Malta passport, which was being used a lot before this pandemic occurred by both children and senior citizens, wherein they were allowed to go in museums and sites for free, and also take somebody else with them in order to promote more our cultural heritage. However, Heritage Malta is committed to provide educational resources beyond the formal curriculum. It provides informal education programs and come up with the schemes such as the passport scheme, which I'm showing you over here. During the past several years, the world around us has been going through continuous transformation. For example, the technological advancement. The amount of technological advancement that is happening in the sector is sometimes not at the right pace of the acquiring of this knowledge. Also, one of the major things that shifted in the touristic world is that there's a lot of independent traveling. People are not only coming over to the island through tour operators, but there's a lot of direct independent traveling. And this changed the way how we also deal with tourists. Apart from all this also, we are looking into particular niche markets. For example, Heritage Malta has come up with this initiative called Taste History, where we are researching historic food and food throughout the centuries, and providing meals and experiences to the general public, but also to specific groups, such as conference attendees. Also, you have a lot of incentive groups, journalists who come over to Malta, and the likes. However, something terrible happened also over these past 2-3 years. There were a number of natural disasters and world disasters which also affected us and affected us also culturally. For example, I'm showing here the Azure window in Duera. This is how it was before, and this is how it is today. We had the terrible incident at Notre Dame de Paris, where these disasters are, we are losing a lot of cultural and natural information because we are not collating the appropriate data. And this is why digitization is an important aspect in all of this. So now, let me focus a little bit more on the COVID-19 situation. 2020 will be the year when our reality changed completely due to the COVID-19 pandemic. On 17th March 2020, the Maltese authorities announced the suspension of all inbound commercial flights. And as of 20th March, no tourists were allowed on the island. Malta isolated itself from the world due to health and safety issues. We've heard the minister also saying how this affected us and also the Director General, who told us that from 80 to 90% of our income is coming from tourism. A large number of economic partners also had to shut their I'll be with you in a second. Okay. A large number of economic partners had to shut down, and individuals were asked to confine themselves to their private spaces. Heritage Malta closed its doors on the 14th of March 2020. The global pandemic had grounded airplanes, shut down hotels, and affected the tourism and cultural heritage industry in a direct manner. As a reaction to this, there was a quick and immediate response in the cultural heritage field. Most institutions in the field, Heritage Malta included, adjusted themselves to the situation by, first of all, changing the jobs of its workers, and secondly, focusing on the digital world as an alternative. These initiatives are fluid and reacting to latest development of the pandemic. The problem of all this is the uncertainty of the unknown. However, most importantly, this meant that workers in the field maintained their jobs. This was also backed by particular economic incentives taken by the government to minimize job losses. The next step was to adjust the situation the situation more strategically. We are currently in this stage. At this stage, players in the field are adjusting themselves to living with the situation and planning to work under these conditions for a number of months, or depending on how this pandemic is going to react. So finally, there seems to be a consensus on how the future will be. It will be different. It is being referred to as the new normal. The cultural heritage world is one of the sectors that came up and adapted itself to the new reality immediately. It did this by internal reorganization, staff development, alternative solutions, external solutions, and services and initiatives. Heritage Malta also adjusted the situation by intensifying its efforts and changing the focus to provide or enhance digital services within its immediate reach. It therefore increases expenditure and provided particular services, including this service where we went live with the spring solstice. We had people from all around the world seeing the rising sun on the 21st of June. Live streaming of the spring solstice then went on YouTube, and the original content streaming is also streamed over there. We also had original content, particularly for this period, but also we did rebroadcasts of past television programs and content. Museums all of a sudden became a digital attraction. Like most museums around the world, we provided the 360 virtual tours, but this was taken up in the first 2 weeks. People were interested in visiting our museums virtually, but they wanted more. So we provided also virtual exhibitions, exhibitions which we digitized in the past are made available, and one can find them on our website, and you can actually visit and this exhibition through virtual tours as well. Apart from that, there were 3D rendering of artifacts, a project which is done in collaboration with several universities, including the University of Malta and the University of South Florida. Heritage Malta has intensified its educational campaigns as well and provided both content for formal and non-formal education. This work was picked up by educational institutions and in return was providing educational content to children who are still confined at home. Some of the initiatives that are being provided include Be the Artist, where children are asked to draw particular themes. This was the heritage site of their choice. The portal, where there is information and particular lessons as well with the Accademia tal-Malti. Traditional confections, wherein people can go online and they find recipes for particular confections and traditional confectionaries. And a prehistoric workbook relating to the prehistoric sites in Malta. Heritage Malta also went live with and you can also see lectures online. But this is the reality right now. What is going to happen in the future? Are we ready for the new normal? What does it consist of in the digital cultural world? Heritage Malta has invested profusely now, and definitely cultural heritage institutions need to be more active and participant in the digital environment and increase its production of digital resources and programs. In this respect, additional resources are required to produce such materials. Also, cultural heritage institutions need to invest in two particular areas: adopting more digital services and skills. Most employees in this field do not really rely heavily on technology, so technological advancement in the field is providing tools and services to the professional in the field. Heritage Malta has already started investing in particular services which is never ventured in before. The future is still uncertain due to the lack of information on this pandemic and its long-term effect. What is definite is that the tourism and cultural heritage industry will be the last to recover back to normality. It therefore requires a unified effort amongst everyone in society, since this new normal will definitely change the way we do things. Just to mention a few examples, interactive touchscreens will be something to be considered following strict sanitization efforts that are being conducted. Blockbuster exhibitions might be a problem in the future, considering the current phobia and paranoia of crowds and crowd control. This means that cultural heritage institutions need to reach homes rather than rely on people visiting the venues. This requires a huge capital investment. Extensive capital investment is needed in this field. Heritage Malta has already embarked on several programs, including the setting up of a digitization unit as part of EEA project funded through Norwegian funds. And also since last year, a proper digitization setup is underway in order to inventorize, consolidate, and disseminate digital material, resources, and services. It therefore requires investment in infrastructure, resources, and equipment. This is being done through local and international funding schemes, and more support is definitely needed in this area. There are two major areas that require extensive investment, and this includes the professionalization of personnel in the field and capacity building. This follows points from the Declaration of Cooperation between all countries of the EU, where in particular emphasis is highlighted on the subject. EU programs and other efforts must concentrate on the need of cooperation between member states, and the exchange of good practices is being discussed in particular fora. As digital investments are underway, we definitely need to focus further on the acquisition of new workers with multidisciplinary skills. Although virtual tours were popular during the first 2 weeks of the pandemic, it is quite evident that clients do not want to just visit the museum. Users are ready to delve deeper into collections and require a more interactive environment. Heritage Malta is also currently investing in collection management systems and digital asset management systems. Apart from the fact that these two systems will organize and consolidate the digital assets, it will help the users in their day-to-day running of the institution and also provide digital services. Also, at the moment, Heritage Malta is working hand in hand with other institutions to collaborate on digital content that is being generated. The speaker after me from the University of Malta will be demonstrating digital assets that are being created, which are congruent parallel to the material that is being produced by Heritage Malta and other institutions, such as the Planning Authority, who will be consolidating all this material in a comprehensive GIS system. I have to emphasize as well and point at the declaration of cooperation signed between EU member states. It discussed this declaration, as discussed, this declaration has 3 pillars of action: a pan-European initiative for high-quality digitalization, reuse of digitized cultural resources, and enhancing cross-cultural and cross-border cooperation. Following the launch of the digital strategy last year by the Maltese government, we are now going through an additional stage to implement a digitization strategy. This will help to consolidate sporadic initiatives which need to be linked and harmonized. It is also a call for the needs of further collaborations between players in the field, from both public and private areas, and both service providers and clients. EU funds are very important also to us as an island. All of this is possible following the need of more funding possibilities with focused outcomes. At the local level, government is already gearing itself towards increasing opportunities in the field. And on an EU level, on the other hand, it is important to emphasize that countries such as Malta and Cyprus have their own particular needs that are different from other environments as we heard before. It is also important that we invest further in interpretation tools, especially networked services, in order to attract a wider audience and also facilitating the interactivity and personalization of the individual experience. Becoming truly data-driven requires changing mindsets, attitudes, and habits. Technological tools are important for the future of professionals in the field. Linked data has the possibility to bring new innovation opportunities. The traffic that is being created through such networks is impressive and bound to be enhanced further. It is therefore our responsibility to work more efficiently towards such solutions in order to share and unify at the same time. It is therefore important for Malta to start looking at the need of having a national aggregator. Thank you for listening and participating, and hope that our cooperation will lead to further initiatives such as these in the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Can I ask you to close the screen share, please? It's interesting to see how much actions can be related to digital actions when trying to reach out to a wider audience, especially during these times. The next three presenters will take a slightly different approach to digitization, where we will be seeing a number of case studies which have been carried out in the areas of 3D scanning and acquisition. This is part of the whole digitization process, and apart from offering us a unique opportunity to collect a lot of data, this data can be used by a lot of different departments, different people and decision makers, whether it is planning, whether it is restoration, whether it is curation. And the case studies we're going to see today, are using the latest state-of-the-art technology. And it is my pleasure to invite Professor 𝐦𝐨𝐫𝐞 Formosa from the University of Malta to share his case studies with us today. Thank you.
Good afternoon. You can hear me now.
Thank you.
Okay. Some years ago, or
just a second, 𝐦𝐵𝐴, the volume is really low.
Okay. Okay, test it now. Okay.
Hello.
Hi. Can you hear me now? It should be open. Tony. Hi. Is it okay now? Is it okay now, Tony? Okay.
Yes, it's okay now. It's okay now. Thank you.
Quite interestingly, some decades ago, actually, I had been to watch a movie called Lawnmower Man, where everything was digitized. This person integrated himself, or they integrated him into the technology. Okay, things went awry, but that got us thinking. What drives this initiative I'm going to show now is that having come from the spatial field, from the GIS sector, and as well as the social, although I'm here presenting Spatial Information System, I'm also in the Faculty for Social Wellbeing at the University of Malta, currently collaborating with the Media and Knowledge Sciences faculty, so we're integrating all this together. And one thing that drives this initiative I'm going to speak about is what if all this disappeared? This has really gotten to me over the years. What if our UNESCO World Heritage Site Valletta disappeared? Do we have tangibility? Do we have data about it? Do we know what it was like? And this got us thinking about how to actually acquire the data. It wasn't war or a disaster that actually took us inside, but it was this invisible item, this invisible creature. And I'll speak a bit later on about how this has actually affected us, and actually we turned it into a positive. I'm not sure if you can see my screen now.
Are you sharing the screen? Say yes.
Should be on now. Okay.
Yep.
So basically, this is the presentation. So I'm going to speak about virtualization as a journey, where I have to, the main basis for what I'm going to speak about is this particular project called 𝐶INTEGRAM, Spatial Development Data Integration for the Maltese Islands. And this presentation actually bases everything on it, because what I'm going to show is some 3D outputs of the technologies we are currently using together with Heritage Malta, together with Russell, Tony, and quite a number of academics who are actually online today too. So basically, going back to 𝐶INTEGRAM, the main aspect for this was to try to come up with actually, is the presentation now okay?
Yes, the presentation is fine. Thank you.
So basically, it's about enhancement of data systems, infrastructure, identifying gaps, and actually trying to see how the data is being created. This is my main focus of today. How do we actually go about capturing data in diverse technologies? Because what we found over time is sometimes we're fixated with one method of capture, as again to the exclusion of all the rest. What I'll be showing here is 3 different types of capture, focusing from photogrammetry, LiDAR, and other techs. And also then at the later part of the presentation, we'll show also what we're going to do in the future. So the main technologies we used for this exercise was orthoimagery, so it's captured using planes. In this case, it was a plane at 600 meters height to capture high definition data. Also, we're quite integrated with, and we use LiDAR, light detection and ranging quite a lot. In this case, as you can see, the image, not sure if you can see the mouse, my mouse moving. That's fortifications at in St. Thomas Tower in Marsa Scala. This is how we render it in 3D, and I'll show this a bit later on. Technically, in 2012, we had carried out this exercise, but the point cloud, because rather than going for mesh at this stage, we're creating point clouds. The point cloud was 1 point per meter squared. Luckily, the camera which came in captured more data at 4 points per meter squared. And in 2018, we went for more high definition data. In this case, the Neolithic temple of Gantia, that's at the 2012 data, that's at 4 points per meter squared. So the current data set, which is what I'm showing now, that went up to between 40 and 120 points per meter squared, which is highly dense. Of course, what can we do with all this? My main scope of all this is to create a baseline data set for the entire islands on which to anchor all the other information which is being gathered by all the other entities. And so everyone plonks their models into the system. So this is like a baseline data set, however, in 3D. And as you can see, since it's taken from Nadir, from the top, the building sites are not always captured. So we have another program going on now to update that. Now I'll show you some outputs using aerial technology and mobile laser scanning systems. Okay, so what can you do with this? You can classify this data. This is actually the church in Floriana with the church in Sarria just behind it. You can classify the data. You can create, let's say there was an incident, and then you can rebuild it based on that data set. Of course, I would expect later on to have Heritage Malta, we're collaborating on this, for their models to be integrated as one enters the church from a digital 3D model point of view. Then they can find these different models, click on them, either through AR or mixed reality. So this is really exciting for the future. Just to give you an example of the method used in the case, now it's not laser scanning, but now terrestrial and drone technology, where we gather data from 60 meters height. We have imagery, we create point clouds, and then eventually create, this is the point cloud on the left, we create meshes, and a mesh which can be viewed then in 3D using VR or MR. So it's quite a complex process. However, once the methodologies have been written, now it's quite straightforward to actually process this information. And then the main issue here is, but is this tangible for most users? Can users view this data? Isn't this too complex? Isn't this too advanced for our way of visualizing reality? What we did there is we used a technology, a software called Poetry through Last Publish, where we actually export all these point clouds for viewers to actually, for users to view, and also they can actually create profiles, heights, view the data, turn the data around, use it for their own projects, etc. I'll show you some of these outputs later on. In terms of technology now, to update all this information, we use various modes, various models of, in this case, the GI technology, which is, this is the M200, we use the M600, Matrice 600, and our loyal tiny beast, which is the Mavic Pro. You can actually let it go on for a whole day. It would scan an entire village. We're doing this now in 𝐦𝐸 to update the information as we go along. This is a major 2-meter laser scanner. The 𝐟𝐮𝐿 Rycopter, it's obviously an aerial laser scanning system, which you need a pilot and an operator to operate, because it's a 25-kilo technology, and it gathers data at high thousands of points per second. We also have, this is within the Department of Archaeology, an underwater scanning system. By the way, it's autonomous. It goes down to 500 meters. It's a brilliant tool, which was also used in the Phoenician scanning project. And we have also this terrestrial laser scanner, and I'll show you some outputs from this scanner. It's actually a 3D scanner. It revolves in 45 seconds, captures laser at 100,000 points, 100 to 200,000 points per second, and imagery, all integrated with GPS. So it can be quite a rapid rapid process to capture an entire street. However, this is my personal COVID lab. This has managed to get me around the island when the island disappeared, when all the people disappeared. I found an excuse to actually tour the island. It's very lonely work. But actually we named this project Make Lemonade, because, you know, when life gives you lemons, make lemonade, do something good with that. And this is what we're doing. We're actually now it's solo, because we cannot be two people in one van for health reasons. So we spend an entire day scanning a village, a town, gather 1 terabyte of data in a day, then spend a week cleaning that data. For every terabyte, you need another 4. So before we all start asking, oh, give us all the data, you know, and or let's try creating the entire continent. Well, let's talk about gigabytes, or not terabytes, but zillions of bytes now for storage. However, then we can actually export this into minimal output, so very, very low dense in terms of weight. And with a normal browser, everyone can view this data. So the technology at the dissemination stage is really coming to the fore now, which is what we're concentrating on. This is a laser. This machine has 2 laser scanners, 6 cameras, and again, it's linked to GPS. What's interesting is this tool attached to the wheel for those who like scanning underground or tunnels. If you're turning a bit in a tunnel, this machine would actually calculate through its IMU the rate of change. So once you exit the tunnel, you can actually link again to the satellite in real space, and the data is integrated again. So it's quite a brilliant piece of machinery, which we're lucky to get from the other projector. Sorry, from the project, not projector. So this is how we integrate the data. And this is an output of one of the monuments, quite a recent monument in Santa Venera in Malta. However, what I'm going to show you over the next few minutes is, this is an output of the LiDAR taken in 2018, the 40 points per meter squared area. Then an output, this is all Città dell'Angoscio, a medieval fortified town. Then I'll show you the output, which we did 4 or 5 weeks ago, actually exactly before Malta shut down. And then I'll show also something about Valletta, the World Heritage Site, and some data which we're doing now using the mobile laser scanner. Of course, in this one, you'll see a lot of noise because this is still being gathered. Actually, the scan was taken just before the entire city, all the people went in. But considering that normally there are thousands of people there, the few tens that there were there is quite understandable. And then I'll show you a bit case study called Torre Labiat, which Tony and myself went to scan. This is still works in progress. Most of what I'm showing is works in progress with the terrestrial and mobile laser scanners, where we attempted to scan the building from outside and also the internal parts of this tower. And then I'll show you the latest thing we're doing. We're now trying to scan all the artifacts we have underground. This is a cave, the Burdan cave, which is in a Natura 2000 site and is in danger of collapse because of activity close by. So let me exit a bit this share and enter again now using, okay, so we need to go now on this. Okay, has the screen changed?
Yes.
Okay, so basically most of this data is available through the Cloud Isle website, where I upload most of this information. It was launched 2-3 years ago as part of an exercise to launch the 2012 LiDAR scans. In 2012, we had also scanned the territory, this external line, which is the boundary under the Water Framework Directive, where we could acquire funds to actually scan that. Remember that even for heritage, in order to acquire funds, we need to be creative. How did we manage to get funds to scan the terrestrial part? There's the noise directive, which falls under the environment portfolio. Our countries have to report on noise. How do you analyze noise? You need data on the building sides of the main roads. So to get a plane here, scan those main roads, we stated, listen, why not scan the entire country? Because the place is only 28 kilometers by 14 kilometers long for Malta and 14 by 7 for Gozo. And that way we got the terrestrial data. How did you get the water, the underwater, the bathymetric part, which is more than the area of the entire island? We got that through the reporting for the Water Framework Directive water columns. And we scanned the underwater part, which is quite interesting, because just to give you an example, if we zoom in on this particular site, I do not have heritage or culture related items underwater because that pertains to another presentation, I think, and that would take forever. However, over here in this particular zone in the south of Malta, there's an area called 𝐦𝐨𝐫𝐞. And as part of, let's call it an artificial reef project, a ship was actually placed over there. So what we did here, we integrated these two data sets together. Let me remove the RGB, the color from the point cloud. So as you can see over here, there's something. So this is all underwater. So we do have this entire data set, which we're building as we go along. Okay, so if I had to zoom in, you can actually see obviously, since this is not laser scanning, but this is bathymetric data. So we can also use this technology to measure, let's say there's a find over there, so we can carry out any type of analysis, depth, height, area, width, volumes. So this does help the entire process of digitalization as new records are gathered. But I just wanted to show you that, just to mention briefly the bathymetric part, because I do not have more data here on the heritage part of bathymetry. However, let me focus now on this town. In this Cittadella and Gozo, this is the 2018 data. So basically what we have there, this is a nadir data set captured from the top, okay? Some of the side data does not appear. So as I move the model around, okay, as you can see, there are data gaps. It's still brilliant capture, considering that we did the entire island. This is brilliant data. However, we're never happy with what we have, right? So what we're doing now is also an exercise which was requested by Cittadella. We sent a drone up, okay, actually it was a DJI Inspire, and gathered this, look at the detail. Obviously, you might be seeing more pixelated stuff because it takes quite some time to load because it's quite heavy. But as you can see now, the building sides are there in their entirety, okay? So what I want to do now, and I'll explain a bit later what technologies we're using. Now, this was, how long did this take? Let me just check the area of the site. Okay, so this area is, as you can see, we can do this live. So let's just say we scan this entire site. So this 32,000 square meter, it took 15 minutes to scan, and the day to actually, oops, something happened. Okay. Sorry about this. I'll have to refresh this a bit. And the day to actually generate the data. So today we can actually use this technology to help us understand what the realities are like over there. As you can see, the detail is incredible. Okay, there you can start seeing the points, which is what we work with. Okay. So it's quite impressive. This, I'm actually pleased with this output. So this is the case where this was the Cittadella in Gozo. How about now, let me switch this off. How about now we go for the 3 cities. Although Valletta is, I'm going to focus on Valletta, since we scanned the entire island, we have Valletta, in this case, Valletta Floriana, which is the suburb of Valletta, and the 3 fortified cities.
Xavier.
Yes.
Can I ask you to start concluding your
presentation?
presentation?
Yes, of course. Okay, then I'll skim through these. All right, so let me skim. Okay, so this is the 3D of the entire city. Okay. And what we're doing now is actually going through, now you'll see noise. This is the MLS, the mobile laser scanner thing, output. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to zoom in on a small area just to show you how detailed the data we're capturing is at this stage. So this would be the area. As you can see, there's a lot of noise which we are cleaning as we speak. Okay, so this would be the data capture of the streets in Valletta. It's 11,000 points per meter squared, so we're talking about serious data. And then you can actually bring in the color points for the entire thing. Okay, so the data here is quite impressive. As you can see, even the balustrades and the balconies are captured. Now, just to skim a bit on the scan which we did on the tower. This is a tower in the north of Malta, where this was scanned using the terrestrial laser scanner. And since we scanned both outside and the inside, we're now cleaning the data of every part of the artifact. Okay. As I promised, I'll show you the cave, and then I'll conclude the presentation. This is the Natura 2000 site cave, which is in danger of so we're capturing it in case there's more collapse in the area. As you can see now, like this, it's a bit cluttered. So if we remove the image, the colors, and just leave elevation data, I'm soon closing Tony. So that gives you an idea of the complexity of this cave with all those towers. This was back-breaking work because it's only about 1 meter high. Let's check. Okay, 1 meter 25 centimeters. So scanning in that zone was heavy. Now let me just switch back to the presentation. So I'll conclude on that. Okay.
You go. Yeah. You have to share screen if you want to show the presentation.
Sure. Okay. So you should be seeing. Okay. So this is. Can you see the cave, Tony?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. So this is the immersive technology we're using. It's actually we upgraded it from this image. It was originally a 4-wall immersive device. So we actually enter in the device, and all the data we captured, the artifact, you can actually move the artifact around, and now we actually have the floor too installed and part of the roof. Okay, and this is an example of the areas we were showing, but obviously you see it in stereo because it's in 3D. This is an example of how once Heritage Malta scan an item, we can bring it into the middle of the room, move it around, and you can talk about conservation in real time. Okay, where are we taking all this? Well, we're taking it over here now. Even that cave is the intermediate step. We're looking at mixed virtual reality. We're looking at augmented reality, but we're also looking now at mixed reality. In this case, the bottom box is the Magic Leap, and we're testing that as we speak. The faculty, Max faculty, have actually 2 people that are working to produce our models, and they're very excited because the Cittadella appeared in the living room. So we're getting there. Some other stuff we're looking at is the tactile approach. Okay, so if people are logged in at home and they're viewing in mixed reality or virtual reality an item, can somehow we create a tactile model which they can touch? And these are some of the technologies which we should be looking at, or hopefully in the next few years we will be looking at. So that gives us an idea of where. Okay, sorry.
I think we have to.
Sorry, can you still hear that?
Yes, it's okay now, but
so the future where we're
running
going with this is, sorry, okay, the issue of gamification. Okay, I'll finish with this. So we have gamification. Oh, stop. Okay. And oh, I keep pressing that. Obviously, there are different outputs which we can create. In this case, for example, we use Minecraft to educate people, children, to get them to understand what it means to take heritage and create it in 3D. This is a pretty nifty tool. Microsoft, I think, paid $2 billion for it. So they have really done things with it. And I think we should morph or transport all our data into such gaming environments. Just as two last images, we have the Minecraft, it's 𝐴𝐿𝐵, also one of our sites, and the 𝐻𝐻𝐵. So actually, I never went into this, I have to say this. I have yet to visit 𝐻𝐻𝐵. I want to do that to scan it. However, in Minecraft, I actually managed to walk throughout the entire place, fixing those blessed flames. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, Xavier. Thank you for your very exciting examples and case studies. I can vouch for you that cleaning data and the post-production of all the acquired data is very time-consuming and very patient work, but we can all agree that the output of a great potential to integrate and analyze the data captured. Thank you once again. Okay, the next two speakers come from the Cyprus University of Technology. I would like to introduce Professor Marinos Ioannidis, who is the UNESCO and European Regional Area Chair on Digital Cultural Heritage, as well as Mr. Douglas Birchard, also from the Cyprus University of Technology, and invite them to share with us their own case studies. I've had the chance to look at both case studies which are being presented now, and I think they are also very interesting and fantastic data acquisition examples. Thank you. Marinos, can you hear me? And
yes. Here we go. Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you. Very clear.
Thank you very much, Tony. I will say that everybody agrees 12 points to Malta for this achievement. It's amazing effort, Tony, and my congratulations and thank you very much to Heritage Malta for setting up the infrastructure and co-organizing this event. Of course, to the European Commission, to the representation in Cyprus of the European Commission, the Cost Action, and the Ministry of Education and Culture in Cyprus, as well as in Malta, and the University of Malta. 9th of May, it is the Europe of Day, so happy Europe Day. And Cyprus, Europe, the slogans of the day today is stronger together, united in diversity. And as you may know, in Cyprus, we have 5 communities. We have the Greek Cypriot communities, the Turkish Cypriot community, the Maronite, the Armenian, and the Latin communities. And the united in diversity, it is indeed something for Cyprus. Europe for culture, and unite for heritage for UNESCO. What we are doing, I would like to show to you a small video starting from a project which we had in 2013, and since then we are working and it is a part of our contribution as a university, but also as a UNESCO and ERA chair to the community in Cyprus, to these United in Diversity communities. It is the Europe Day, and that's the song of Europe. We are preserving the memories of Cyprus. We are collecting this, what it is hidden in our houses, in our photo albums. And of course, nobody can see except us. But this is changing now with the digital cultural heritage. So we are trying to promote that by contributing so good as we can. We take this content and we give it free to the rest of the world. This is a financial support which comes from Europe, and these are part samples of the memory of Cyprus, of course. And the different municipalities, the different village councils, the different families, the different private people are coming to the university, giving us their content, and we digitize to create the photo album of Cyprus. The church is collaborating with us, different monasteries. This is the memory of Cyprus from the colonial time, or even from the time when the first photographer arrived in these particular places, in these corners of the island. The development of the island over the years. And of course, oops, just a second, have to go to the next slide. As you may know, digitizing the past is all about the knowledge, it's all about the memory, it's all about the story. It's actually all about our identity. So on the 18th of April, we celebrated the International Day for Monuments. And we would like to show to you two key examples. UNESCO World Heritage, of course, listed monuments. The one which is here, it looks like how it was the Cathedral of Notre Dame, but it is by the end of the Second World War. Yesterday was the day when the 75 years by the end of the Second World War. And the second one, which is 1,000 years old monument, it looks somehow different, but it is indeed a part of the UNESCO World Heritage List. That photo is from the time when the first photographer arrived on that site 110 years ago. And of course, you know, on the 18th of this month is the International Day of Museums. And here we have a key, a unique museum object, which I don't want to say any word about that, but it will come soon. About the Cathedral of Cologne, my colleague, who is now stuck and he is in Canada, Douglas Pritchard, will present the result of the documentation. I will continue and finish my presentation, and then Douglas will show to us. The monument as it was in 1919 when the first photographer arrived there. It is, as I mentioned at the beginning, a listed monument, protected monument, and here a small video clip.
Marinos,
The music of...
Can you put the volume down, please? Thank you. No, just put the volume of the video down so that we can hear you explain it.
Yeah. Is it okay now?
Yes, okay.
Thank you. And of course, the monument as it was on that time, during the preservation, and the monument as it looks like now, the digitization, camera reconstruction, the point cloud reconstruction, the surface, the different phases of the moment moving from the analog to the digital, and then of course the beauty of the object, which is not outside, it is inside. Unique frescoes, and as UNESCO mentioned, it is they represent an outstanding and universal value, and that's all about how the digital technologies can help and support us not only to digitize, but also to model, to archive, to preserve, and for the next generations to come to protect, of course, this content. The data in all the different formats, for all the different type of groups of professionals are available, and the monument as an object available in a holistic approach, the tangible as well as the intangible. The icons have been digitized, the entire frescoes, but not only that, we digitize the priest, we digitize the liturgy, we digitize even the festivities during the day when this monument is celebrating. So, and we collected from all over the world all the reports, all the scientific material available, and it is now a monument which is holistically documented and presented in Europeana. This material is, of course, in such a way so that can be used in the schools, but also to be presented in public occasions for a variety of user groups. The monument, as I mentioned earlier, is available under Europeana. Europeana, as you may know, it is the digital library of Europe on cultural heritage.
Dr. Marino, can you stop the music? Because people are saying they cannot hear you.
So
excellent, very good.
And here, the monument, it is digitized, it is documented in a such a way so that it is or modeled in an H-beam environment, a beam building information model management system, but with the H, a heritage building information management system, or as we now define it, as a holistic heritage building information management system. The monument has been digitized, has been fully documented with the help and support of all those who are, of course, in charge of the monument. In 2012, the former minister of the Cyprus government responsible for culture, Mr. 𝐻𝐿 Demosthenes, in a special ceremony in Brussels during the Council of Ministers of Culture, handed over or harvested in Europeana the first 3D object on that time. In 2012, Cyprus, who had the presidency of the Council of the European Council, and that was the year also when Europe or the European Union received the Nobel Prize for peace. And that's also the day of Europe. That's the ending of the Second World War. This is the continent which since then, is free of any war. The last one example which I would like to show to you is a very unique one example. It is an object in the National Archaeological Museum in Athens. It has been found 110 years ago in the ground, 100 meters deep ground of the sea outside of the island of Antikythera. It's a small island between Crete and Peloponnese in Greece. And some investigations started from an international community of scientists to find out what it is at all, this document. And yes, the scientific documentation of that showed out that this was a real complex machine. That was, and that it is, the oldest analog computer of the world, coincidentally found at the ground of the sea on the island of Antikythera. Here a small video which comes from Italy, from a company in Italy, shows exactly the complexity which is behind. And here, ladies and gentlemen, it is all about the documentation of the past. Is it just only the 2D and the 3D data acquisition? What is it actually behind that? And where we are standing at the moment with these tools, the so-called smart, intelligent, ICT, even with the artificial intelligence behind. How can we document? How can we bring up and preserve for the generations to come this unique and genius engineering 2,500 years old? How can we document it in such a way so that it's available 24 hours, 7 days a week for everybody, not only for scientists, but even for kids in the schools, for scholars, for everybody. And of course, to preserve and protect that. This is amazing if someone can see that such a kind of complex machinery was on that time available, but even more that human beings were able to produce something like that with a precise accuracy to count the movement of the planets, but also the exact day, like it is today, the Europe Day, the day when the Olympic Games had to start in Greece. And of course, when the wars had to stop because the Olympic Games had to start. This is, ladies and gentlemen, the challenge where we are working now, and because it is a museum object, it is the so-called movable part of the tangible. We are working by the 18th of this month to have something ready related to that mechanism to go for Europeana. So one of the most complex machines of the world are going to be in Europeana, available in the next few weeks. And of course, as one of my good friends and colleagues, Professor Moropoulou from the National Technical University of Athens is saying, our monuments, museums, and sites are talking. The point here is, do we understand them? And how the digital era can contribute to a better understanding, to access them, to preserve them, to protect them, for the, of course, protection of the history, of the identity, and so on. And of course, internationally talking, there are no standards available to do that. So we are now digitizing, we are now writing the story of the past in an analog way without a universal standardized method or guidelines. And of course, as UNESCO chair, it is mandatory, and we are obliged to work towards the UN Sustainable Development Goals. And this is what we do. It is really, really contributing to all the UNESCO Sustainable Goals, with both chairs which we have. A big thank you to everybody for this unique day. Special thanks also to our collaborator, industrial collaborator, Zoller and Frohlich in Germany, but also to all the others European partners who are now following us. Special thanks also to the National University, National Technical University of Athens. And here I finished, and I will give the floor to my colleague Douglas from Canada to show to us the results of a unique project coming from Germany. I want just only as a last word to say the name, make a reference to our name as you see it here on my slide. Mnemosini. Mnemosini was the mother of the 9 ladies, the so-called muses, who were in charge to keep the memory or to preserve the memory of the ancient Greeks. From the mythology, Mnemosini was a goddess. So this is what we are doing also, or what we are trying to do with the different tools which we have at the moment in our hands. Douglas, the floor is yours.
Can you stop the screen share, please, Marinos?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm just going to share my screen now. And okay, well, first of all, thank you, Marinos, and thank you, Tony, for this opportunity. I'd like to say hello to everyone from the Geographic Centre of Canada. Good morning from my perspective. What I'm going to quickly do is run through a recent research project that was done at the Cologne Cathedral in Germany. And as many of you know, the cathedral is a UNESCO World Heritage Site. The initial construction of this incredible Gothic masterpiece began, I'd say, remarkably in 1248. It was developed over a series of stages, but wasn't completed until 1880. Part of the background in this project has to do with my involvement when I was living in Scotland. We developed a number of projects, including the urban model of Glasgow. But at the Glasgow School of Art, I was there during the first fire that destroyed or significantly damaged the Glasgow School of Art. And then and was not there during the second fire, which was more catastrophic. But that's kind of the foundation of my work, and likely many of you, is this idea of digital preservation and capturing a building in its pure as-built form in a digital way for building management, building conservation, and also other presentation tools for engagement. So just some of the projects, we're all well aware of the Notre Dame Cathedral fire. And I think that's important to understand that, you know, you look at a building today and you assume that it is well recorded, and that may not be the case. So using the digital technologies are very important. In the case of Cologne Cathedral, Marinos touched upon some of the previous threats during World War II, but if you look through the history of the building, there has been a tremendous amount of risk to the survival of the building. And even more recently, you're looking at the UNESCO potentially delisting the building. This was back in 2004 with regards to adjacent construction, legacies there of World War II. So that's kind of the reason behind the project. But more importantly, it was the documentation challenge of doing such a massive building. So these are the partners, the first one being the cathedral itself. Zoller and Froelich, as Marinos mentioned, were fantastic in the support of this project. Fresenius University of Applied Science were the ones that actually initiated the connection with myself and the cathedral, and Watt University in Edinburgh, Scotland. Just to look at the building itself, the Cologne Cathedral at one point in the late 1800s was the tallest building in the world. And when you're standing on the top of the towers, you can appreciate the height. The building was eventually taken over by the Eiffel Tower and I believe the Washington Monument in the United States. In 1996, it was added to the World Heritage List, the UNESCO World Heritage List, and currently it's the tallest twin-spired church at 170 meters tall. When you arrive at the cathedral, the first thing you're obviously completely stunned by the size and the mass of this building and the fact that it has survived for such a long period of time. But when you get a little bit closer, you start to see the challenges, the physical challenges that the building has, dealing with issues like stone degradation due to climate warming and increased air pollution. You have seismic concerns with the structure of the building. There is other issues with the problem with mass tourism and vandalism. The building is under threat overtly, like you've seen with potentially with Notre Dame or other sites around the world. But then also there is the imposition of time, and every day through the rain, wind, the building is slowly degrading. So as a project, this is the aerial view of the cathedral. You're looking at a massive building in an urban center with considerable amount of tourists. And so this began as a challenge to a certain extent to see how much work could be done in a short period of time. And at that point, using at that time, the latest Zoller and Froelich technology, the scanning commenced. And it was scanning initially and then photogrammetry. And the main thing was to document at that point ground level and then the interior spaces. And if you could just see off to the right in the image, there's a blue box there sitting on the ledge. That is one of the Zoller and Froelich scanners. So this is how the project began. But over time, the cathedral appreciated the quality of the work and the complexity of the project. So it became more involved. So as many spaces as possible within the interior of the building as well as the exterior were documented. And this is a fantastic shot, I think, of the cathedral. You're seeing the top surfaces of the rib vaults, but this is the roof level of the cathedral, and you're seeing the structural support for the roof was originally wood, but that was replaced after the war and replaced with steel. So the comparison between the Cologne Cathedral and Notre Dame is very apparent here. And the other thing is, which is very interesting with regards to Notre Dame, is the rib vaults act as a fire protector. and the same here as a fire chamber to a certain extent, containing the fire. This is how the project began, this is midpoint in the project. And I have to say that Dr. Froelich from Zoller and Froelich was very enthusiastic about the project and supported us with the use of his staff. On the left there is Chris Eld, and providing us with additional technical resources and staff. And so we were able to get a very, very comprehensive scan and 3D representation of the site. At the time, using the 5010C scanner, as well as the 5010X, with the lighting system, which I think is very important. What's important to me with this project was to push the technology as far as we could. So everything was done on the highest resolution possible with full HDR imagery, 360 imagery that was combined with the scan data. And then the scanners went absolutely everywhere. It was tied to the existing survey network at the cathedral. And all the scans had this 360-degree view, which was then directly associated, or 360-degree imagery, which is associated directly with the point cloud. There was thermal imagery applied. And then from my side, I love climbing buildings and climbing on top of buildings. An older project was actually Mount Rushmore, where we created rigs with an organization called 𝐸𝐴RC. And it is to use the scanner as a tool for comprehensive documentation. So in this case, with the support of Zoller and Froelich again, positioning the camera in one of the keystones or one of the scanners in the keystones and lowering it downward, but then taking the scanner everywhere. And basically every good opportunity to scan and document was done, including putting the scanner on top of the two towers. And this was one of my views midway through the project, which was a lot of fun. So you can see at the top there, the rail station at 𝐶𝐿. And then the other aspect is, as many of you know, a scanner could only document what it sees. So you want to be able to position it in many positions as possible. So in this situation, this is on the North Tower, extending the scanner outward and then scanning upward to get the top remaining component of the tower, but more importantly, flipping it upside down and scanning directly downward where we had the whole roof profile and towers. And just very quickly, I just want to finish up here, showing you in total about 770, 800 scans. And this is the data. So that's interior and exterior data combined together. So extensive scanning at the entryways so that we knew that we had the perfect connection between the two data sets. And this animation that you're going to see here was developed very quickly. Once you have the data, you could do a lot with it. And in this case, it was to explain the volumes, the spaces within Cologne Cathedral. And this was done to a certain extent in reaction to the fire at Notre Dame, explaining the different components of Gothic architecture. And I'm just going to let this run for a second. So again, once you have the data, you could do some fantastic things in terms of just visualizing the raw data. And it's important to point out this project, although my area of interest is in digital preservation and virtual engagement, this project mostly focused on the documentation side. Other projects that I've been involved with have included more on the visualization and the engagement side. And as Marinos touched upon with his project, looking at the alternatives to visualization, be it on BIM, architectural and engineering purposes, but also dealing with the public and integrating a narrative. So just, this is a great cross-section right through the building. And what I'm trying to show here is the able to get down into the cavern underneath the cathedral and scanning from the lowest position all the way up to the very top. And I'm just wrapping up right now. So showing the facade. And this is the scan data. This is the combined registered scan data of the entryway. And this is purely the point data, so you're picking up a tremendous amount of detail. But what's interesting is when you start to combine that with digital imagery, so the photogrammetry of the building, you're now picking up a massive amount of information. This is now meshed 3D data. And as a previous 3D modeler, modeling something like this up would have been impossible. So this is all within the last, say, 5 years, this capability. And the quality of data is fantastic. So to a certain extent, I would have to say, when living in Scotland, I would argue that every A-listed heritage building should be documented to this level, the exterior and the interior. And I would suggest the same with significant architectural sites throughout Europe and heritage sites. And this is now the overlay of the scan data, which to me just looks like a photograph, but in fact that's a 3D model. And you're picking up the patina of the stone. You could see the weathering on the brass door handles. Really a fantastic data set. And pretty much the entire building could be visualized to this level of quality. Right now, it's just an issue of time, processing, and computer capability. And just another view of the building entryway. And that is the end of my presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Douglas. I think we all agree that the photos you just ended up with are really awesome, and the kind of detail which you managed to capture from the scans. Very well done. We're running very late, so we don't have time for questions. I just have one question which I'd like to put forward to Dr. Marinos. Basically, one of the participants asked, based on this reality that we're living at and the future trends in post-pandemic, can digital culture become an integral part of e-learning? And if yes, through which distribution channel or platform? So how much does digital culture now form part of e-learning at all levels, basically?
Yes, indeed. It will be one of our main tasks in the UNESCO chair, as well as under the ERA chair, is to establish a master course, worldwide recognized, accredited master course on digital cultural heritage, focusing exclusively in the holistic documentation of cultural heritage, where we bring the entire expertise, the multidisciplinary, the interdisciplinary, but also the intersectorial expertise in this triangle of research, of industry, of academia, but we can extend it by taking also into account key stakeholders or those who are in charge to take care of the cultural heritage, integrate them in this course, and create, let's say, a channel, a forum where the new generation of scientists, a new generation of experts will can manage to learn and get out in the future and continue in this sector. You will be informed very soon. We are working in different areas at the same time, multidimensional, multimodal way, but very soon it will be announced, and it will be in cooperation on a pan-European level, but of course also worldwide with the UniTwin network. Yes, thank you
very much. Thank you. I would like to thank all those of you who have remained with us till the very end of this webinar. We have, through this webinar, collected a significant mailing list of people who are interested in the subject. Whoever registered to the webinar, more than 1,100 people, will receive a link to the recording of this webinar, and we will also keep you informed of future events that we plan to organize together with the Cyprus University of Technology on related subjects to digital cultural heritage. Once again, thank you to all the speakers and participants in this webinar from the comments that people have been putting throughout these 2.5 hours. We have received excellent feedback. Your presentations have been very well liked, and I think that everyone agrees that we should do this again. Thank you once again.
Thank you very much to everybody around the world. 5 continents were now online, yeah?
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.